Hey, Adam,
Geez,
one
why,
thing.
why do you think they called bumpers, Gary?
I don't know.
Because they come at the beginning and at the end, like bumpers.
Alex, you're a marketing guy. Do you like that design behind Paul? Does that SWIT logo thing look pretty cool to you?
Hey, I forgot to hit the record button.
That's really professional, isn't it?
Well, this is a professional podcast.
I met her in a parking lot and was handed 2 little Yorkies. And the only person I knew that knew Yorkies was Paul. So I called Paul and said, Paul.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SoundCloud and subscribe today. Now it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sweet Talk, our weekly podcast here at Idaho State University's Continuing Education and Workforce Training. I am Paul Dickey, one of your hosts. I'm the Video Instruction Manager and Apprenticeship Coordinator here at SWEET. And joining me, as always, is our Interim Director of SWEET, is Raylyn Price. Raylyn, how are you doing today?
I am good. We are enjoying this snowy, blustery Friday. We were grateful that we all made it to work through all the snow, no wrecks on the way, at least for our staff in our office. So that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So as our listeners know, we usually record these on Friday, and it's snowing like crazy out today. Crazy out today.
It's looking like looking like Christmas, but yes. So we also have with us Angie Wilhelm, and I'm going to turn the time over to her to introduce our guest.
So thank you everyone for joining us on Sweet Talk. Today, our guest is Alan Nichols. Alan just wrote a book called The Boy From Pocatello. He was at one point living here in Pocatello when his father was the president of Idaho State University. Alan is 93 years young, and he was a lawyer from Stanford. He was a president of the Explorers Club. He was a politician. Alan once biked thousands of miles through China. So I'm sure he's got some interesting stories to tell us today. So Alan, welcome to Sweet Talk. And can you take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you?
Well, I'm Alan Nichols, and I'm returning to God's country. And I used to go to school here. And for 15 years, when my dad was president, I was a member of the 7th Avenue gang. You know where 7th Avenue is around here. Mm-hmm. And so when I had to leave to go to college and so forth, I always told everybody that this is God's country. Now I've come back here, and it looks more like New York, but I think it still is. I walked around the block the other day, and just around the block, 4 people stopped 4 Pocatello stopped their car and asked me if I wanted to ride. Because thanks to the U.S. Army, I have 2 canes. I had to turn them all down, but I've never had such a welcoming. I love it.
Oh, that's great.
So, Alan, that means you've returned to Pocatello. Is that correct?
I am, yeah. I live on 8th Avenue. Sorry to say, I don't live on 7th Avenue. That used to be my hangout.
You're my neighbor then, Alan. You're my neighbor. I live on 9th.
So, Alan, you're back in Pocatello, but you have a book coming out called The Boy From Pocatello. Could you tell us a little bit about your book?
Okay. It's not The Boy, and it's not a boy. It's just Boy From Pocatello.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. I've written about 36 different things. So as being a lawyer and all sorts of other things, my expeditions and all that is a very big, important part of my life. But I really, Pocatello is the same. I mean, how can you say that? I never saw all those department stores down there. I mean, they call it Old Town. I used to walk like from here. I lived on 11th Avenue with my dad and the family, and I had to walk to Pocatello High School every day. And in this time of year, that's kind of difficult, but it's a lot easier now. I mean, I haven't seen any real snow. We used to have it like this. But
No. So, Alan, does
Mm.
your book, Boy from Pocatello, is it really about your life here in Pocatello, or does it explore other topics like your biking through China and some of the
well,
expeditions you've led?
it was supposed to be the publisher, St. Regis Press in Berkeley, wanted to have it, uh, just about my fate, who I was, and all that stuff. But I got started, and my obsession for the last probably 20, 30 years has been sacred mountains. And I've done exploration all over. And so here's a draft of the manuscript that he's working on now. And about the first 80 pages are about me. It's kind of like autobiography. But
Wow.
I don't know whether that's so good. But the rest of it is terrific. I have sacred mountains all over the world. That was my specialty. So if you want any consultation on a sacred mountain, I
So
don't think a lot of people want
when
it.
you
But
when you say sacred mountain, Alan, what do you mean by that?
well, here can you? I don't know. You can't see stuff, can you? I mean, here's Fujisan, Japan, Omani-san and Fujisan in Japan. This will be in color. Oh, can you see it?
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Alan's holding up a photograph of a large mountain.
Of a
Oh,
volcano.
Is it
yeah.
volcano? Okay.
Oh, Fujisan, yeah. I slept. This is when God or heaven looks at Fujisan. This is what they see. But
Mm.
when you and I look at it, it's here. And so I'm going to have. So my pictures, you don't get a picture in here unless you unless it's a mountain that has some real important spiritual. And
Okay.
and if I have to have had the opportunity to be there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Alan, growing up in Pocatello, where did you go to elementary school?
Washington Elementary School,
Oh,
and it's still there. And uh, I can't remember too much except they play pom pom polo away in the back. That big lot.
mhm.
You run from one place to across, and the guy. This is mostly a kids game. Well, all a kids game, but mostly male kids. I don't think we ever had the chance to tackle females. Maybe now we do. But anyway, there's a guy. I'm not going to give you his name because I still remember it. He was a nasty player of pom pom polo. So you're running across, and I forgot whether I hit him too hard or he hit me too hard. Anyway, he challenged me to a fight. And so the teachers and the principal, no way, you can't fight. So Leroy and I made a deal that we would fight at 5:30. We'd come back to school, Washington. So we were both there, but I can say we never had the fight. The principal wasn't there. Nobody said we couldn't, but we didn't really want to fight. That's Pocatello for you.
So
That's great.
I have a question for you, Alan. Your biography is just insane, right? You've done so much stuff in your life. Is there any particular adventure you went on that sticks out in your memory that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, Mount Kailash. Kailash is probably the most sacred mountain in the world. It's Buddhist. And when I say why, it's Buddhist, Bonpo, and by that, there's more people who are involved as civilians or regular people with Mount Kailash than anywhere else. It's in the middle of Tibet, and I bicycled from Urumqi, which is the old capital of Xinjiang province. Both these countries have been conquered by the the PLA, People's Liberation Army, China. But when they kind of got a little bit looser about letting tourists and stuff came in, it gave me an opportunity to bicycle there, which was some. I mean, it seemed like there's so many things. It's like being nasty. The other wonderful places that I've been, Fuji-san, loves Fuji in Japan. I love Japan in the first place. Uh, my dad was part of General MacArthur's occupation of Japan. And so I kind of knew a little bit about it. When I went there, Fujisan has a big crater at the top. And it's absolutely improper to go down in that crater. But they say claim it's a danger. But it's, trying to handle it. Hey, it's 70, 80,000 Japanese going up there because you can only hike 2 months a year. Otherwise, the weather's
Oh.
too bad. Anyway, so I went up there. They have these little lodges. But by the time I was around there and I didn't know how to do it, you can't find a room. But I happened to have heavy blanket and stuff. So I went down into the crater and I spent 2 nights in that crater.
Wow.
That was so great. But there's another thing really great. Pocatelloans would understand this. There are Japanese police all over the top. There's thousands of people, all these little huts for people to stay in and all that stuff. It's against the law for anybody to go down there. I was down there. I spent 2 days there, and they let me stay. That's Japanese for you.
They didn't
They're
arrest
very
you.
strict about it. Yeah.
So,
Around here.
Alan, what took you on your bicycle tours? Were you living over in that area, or did
Oh,
you
no.
just? No, you lived in the United States and then just
Yeah.
went over there for those adventures.
And I was always a part, not always, but I was a part of the Explorers Club, was the capital of the head of the Explorers Club worldwide is in New York. And
Okay.
while I was president, I kind of commuted back and forth from San Francisco. That was one time I lived a lot in New York. Mongolia used to be a part of it's free, it's free country. And I spent about 4 years going maybe 5 or 6 trips to Mongolia because I was trying to find the tomb of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is the greatest warrior, had more territory, more important emperor than anybody in our history, in their history. Fantastic story.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing.
Alan, so far you've told us you've been to China, you've been to Japan, you've been to Mongolia. Where else have you traveled?
All through Central Asia. Can I tell you one little quick story? I went through Iran. I biked from Turkey through 11 countries when I was biking the Silk Road. And when I was going to be this big hero, so I was on a bike. You understand when you're on a bike, everybody else is on trucks or army bus, all that stuff. So here I am in Iran, and that was big time enemy. Not maybe as much now, because I was riding down a freeway going to Tehran. The guy rolls down his window and he yells, "God bless America!" I'm ready to drop. I mean, all I ever heard was this was the enemy. And then he drives on, so I don't know who he was or anything. But it was,
But he knew you were American, huh?
oh, yeah. You couldn't tell, of course, I had an American,
Nobody else
American.
bikes through there except Americans.
I was on the freeway. I was going to Tehran.
Wow.
Great mountain right next door that was really extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, Alan, what compelled you to do this? What made you bike through Asia?
Well, that's really a good question. I guess it's kind of like, a psychiatrist asking insane people, "How are you acting like this?" And it was such a joy to me. I love to be outside. I love mountains. In my life in Pocatello, had a lot to do with that. My parents were, my dad and mom were big picnickers. We went to Mink Creek. I mean, every weekend during the summer and stuff, they were doing something. So by the time I, was able to make my own decisions, I constantly. I mean, I was a lawyer, had to make a living, but and from writing and stuff. But I really like to be outside. I love first place. You take the people in China. You know, you start reading Wall Street Journal. Well, oh, that's not so bad, but they don't talk very well about China, and of course they don't, because they're big enemies and all that stuff. But go out in the country, be going down the road, get a flat tire. 4 or 5 people will stop to help you. I mean, it's just so different in terms of the people as distinguished from the government. So I loved it. And
Alan, did you travel by yourself or did you travel with a group when you would go on these biking excursions?
all, always, well, biking, always myself.
Okay.
First aid bikers are kind of self-guided. George, I wouldn't think 10 cyclists ever go in a different direction, but uh, I did have my son, Sean. Uh, he went with me. I was about 2 months on the Silk Road, going from Istanbul to Xi'an, the old capital of China. And he went with me a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And we had to go to Tashkent, which is way north. So what are you doing up there? But you couldn't go through the Fergana Valley because there was a lot of guerrilla warfare and all that stuff.
Oh,
So you come over and you come back into this valley, and then you go up this high ridge. And he and I were biking together. I got to the top. Now, I wasn't anywhere strong as he was, but he was doing something. So I got to the top of this ridge, snow, maybe 12 feet on both sides of the road, trucks sometimes, but not much traffic. Anyway, so I'm sitting there waiting. His name's Sean. Sean in Chinese means mountain. So there's no actual coincidence there. So I'm getting worried. I'm sitting up at the top, and he's much stronger than I am. So what the man, has he fallen, injury, run over something? So finally I hear down the road, quite well far down, I hear Dad. So I know he's coming. He's coming. Whew. Man, I don't have to go back and try to find him. He gets up to the top. We're very foggy now. And so he goes right, and now we're kind of just a little bit down. So he's starting down. And I'm waiting for him. He whizzes past me. And I say, Sean, wait, stop. And he says, yodels. Ah! And he disappears into the fog. But by this time, it's a pretty steep mountain, and he's going down really fast. Maybe 5 minutes later, I hear, ah! God. Wait till I see my wife and my kids. I've killed this youngest son of mine. So I rush down there. The road just go like this down there. And I find him because he's still screaming. I look down the hill, and there he is, maybe 50, 75 yards off of the road. He's fallen off the road. No surprise, it's foggy, it's wet, snow on the sidewalk. Anyway, but this is a very steep thing. So I go down there to find that he has survived. He's sore, but he has survived. And I thought, well, from now on, Sean is going to listen to me a little better. Well, that never happened, but it was a great experience for him. So we went on together, and he survived.
Hmm.
That was good.
so, wow. So, Alan, you did all these journeys and stuff, and it sounds like you just wanted to see more mountains that kind of reminded you of your childhood in Pocatello. So I listen to these stories that you're telling, and when did you have time to be a lawyer?
Uh, well, that's a very good question because where did you have time? I learned something very early. I worked for a very large law firm, Admiralty law firm in San Francisco, and I, you know, I don't like big things. I don't like to be told what to do. So a friend and I, also from Stanford, who was an attorney, we started our own law firm. And I also don't like to do the very same thing over and over again. I mean, it's biking, okay, but if it's law cases, I'd rather do the extra research and all that stuff, even if I haven't done that kind of law. And so, but the real secret, now that I'm basically retired, I can tell you the truth, is that I developed a small law firm. Somehow my partner died, but that's nothing to do with it except
Oh.
sad thing. And we wrote a book called Water for California, 2-volume where Bancroft Whitney published this book, and it was the leading book for water rights and water in California.
Oh,
There's
okay.
big issue there. Well, the one thing I could do is if you had people there who you trusted and liked, other lawyers, 6 or 7 lawyers, they do it and they love doing it. And so I can remember when I biked the Silk Route from Turkey, from Istanbul, Turkey, to Xi'an, China, which I figured was probably at least 8,000 miles. If you look up in the book, it's only about 3,500, but that's going straight through the way the railroad used to. And I shared those experiences, and so I a neat little law firm too. I remembered one thing. I'm a poet. I mean, I claim to be a poet, and I published a few poetry books. But I used Alan Hammond. My name's Alan Hammond Nichols because poets are kind of crazy stuff, and I didn't want to lose clients or some weird guy, even though I am. So that was, uh, that's a very good question, and it's hard for me to say. I was a really hard worker, but when I was there, but I I spent quite a bit of time making sure my partners and everybody were back behind this next project to go to Mongolia or somewhere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, Alan, we're actually out of time, believe it or not. You've been such a joy to have on this podcast. If someone would like their own copy of Boy from Pocatello, can you tell us when that might be out and where they may be able to purchase that?
Yeah. Well, first place, it'll be on Amazon, which is a simple way to do it. But the publisher is St. Regis Press in Berkeley, and we've actually produced the materials to do that. So what if anybody was kind of interested? Although the publisher doesn't like the idea of pre-publication, we will produce it 2 stages. When it's done, and then, or if it's like this case where it won't be really done until a notice went out, I think, for the 1st of summer. I'm done. I'm not quite done. We're in one last thing right now, but other than that, I mean, I know if anybody wants to actually get the little publication, which will come out when it does, I mean, they could send that to me and I'll get it to the publisher, even though he doesn't have that going. But
Okay, very good.
He's not going to be sending stuff out. It's going to be that it's coming.
Okay, well, thank you, Alan. It looks like if you're interested in the book, we can get that on Amazon, hopefully early this summer. Thank you so much for being our guest, Alan. I'm going to turn this back over to Paul to wrap us up.
Well, that was a great pleasure to be here. You guys are live wires. I can see it in your eyes.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for sharing all those stories with us. Really, I find them very entertaining, and I can't wait to the publication of the book. Now, if anyone wants to look into our offerings here at CEWT, you can go online to our website at cetrain.isu.edu, or you can email us at cetrain@isu.edu, or just give us a call at 208-282-3372. And again, thank you so much. Please, if you like this podcast, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring our message to the community, and be safe out there.